Hello everybody, welcome to my second digital presentation, the revised version of how Arizona State University should light its campus. And here we have the intended audience, which we were able to define for ourselves the objective and who this was applied for. This was a pretty broad audience being Arizona State University, so there were a lot of things that we had to do to condense this. Here was the question and the brainstorm that kind of formed at the beginning, and the sun is written way down here because that came later after our first copy of the digital presentation came back. We decided to reinvestigate some new options of daylighting and how that would play out. So we had to define the years of analysis, and how that will play out is seen in the calculations. So here's some more assumptions we had to make in order to get through the calculations. And at the bottom there you see the discount rate, which is written in a different color because this is the most subjective thing on here. Discount rate could be very high for a college student who doesn't put much greater value on future payoff, and that's why I chose that as 15% because I thought that was relatively high. And seeing how this is tuition, this is our money, so that's why we chose that. And here we see a sentence explaining the equivalency of a LED light bulb and why and exactly how much less energy it takes it consumes to produce the same amount of light. So that is going to be seeing why LEDs pay out in the long run. And here's the equations that are going to be used, and the variables are defined here, and the net present value is what this stands for, and the net present cost is saying simply the opposite of the net present value. And this is what the number we're going to be looking at, because this is a need and that is going to cost us money to obtain the need of lighting. And so that's why we're going to work toward a net present cost here, and that's why everything in the fund figures is pointing down. This is the cash flow. Here is option 1, which is going to be our control, and the control is what is most common that I've observed is most buildings that are not new. Some of the new buildings do have quite a bit of daylighting in them, but most do not. Most of the older ones, that is. And same with the lighting. Most common is CFLs. Perhaps in new buildings we'll see some LEDs, but here is zero initial investment to basically maintain what we have now, and here is how that pays out in the long run. This is in decades, so here we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that is used to simplify some of the numbers. Here it comes up, and that's 5 years. I'll run you through the equations since we're doing okay on time. Here is 1,000 light bulbs times 55 watts times 50 kilowatt hour, or 50,000 hours, times by the dollar per watt hour, which was converted. This is actually 8 cents per kilowatt hour, but to cancel, as you see here, nice and simply, it was already divided by 1,000, and just 1K was kept to be carried through. This is adding cost of a replacement bulb. That CFLs will need to be replaced every 10,000 hours, so 5 and about 5 replacements in a decade. 1,000 light bulbs at $4 a pop, we're looking at 20 or 240K, and that's pointing down. So use that to get us through the net present value equation. timesing that by 5 decades, and by our discount factor and our years of analysis, how long are we looking for this to, how much is this going to cost us? In 50 years, this is going to cost us approximately $4 million. Okay, so that is how the first option will play out. Now, how will the second option play out is not as bad on the future cost, but we have here a little initial investment, which is estimated as $35 per LED light bulb, and we're going to replace all of them. Since we said they're all CFLs, we're going to have to replace all 1,000 light bulbs. So that's how much that's going to cost, about $35K initial investment. And then the reoccurring payment is $0.00008 per watt hour times 1,000 light bulbs by LEDs are only using 28 watts instead of 55 here, times 50K of hours of use, and then here added in only 1,000 replacement bulbs instead of 5,000, but this is actually costing us a little bit more. Here this was 35K, the last one was actually 25K, so here, even because the price is so expensive, they're even costing more, even though we're replacing them less. But if we put greater value on the durability of products and the sustainability, as we'll talk about in the end, then this is even more reason why to go for it. And here we see everything being the same except for that, and in the end, going to cost us significantly less. In 50 years, only $2.5 million, so $1.5 million less. Here we see the most expensive initial investment, and this is a little break. This is what this is for, retrofitting daylighting into the building. So this I assume to be $215K to retrofit daylighting. This could vary greatly on the building, but we're only talking about maybe putting in some extra windows, changing the windows to smart windows that can change the tint according to how much light is coming in the room. So those are available today, and they don't actually cost a whole lot. They're only maybe double. And then maybe added some lights. That would be a little bit of construction. Skylight if it applied. So here we just threw in an arbitrary guess, and that's our initial replacement bulbs. So that worked out to be $250K, and then the reoccurring payment right here that says because of daylighting, we divided by 2. We're assuming to be half the hours of use, and so here again, half the hour or half the amount of bulbs would need to be replaced, added to the recurring payment. This would more be like a jump every other decade if I was to do it like that, but I decided to factor it just to even it right through for simplicity. And that was only $1.5 million, which as you see, $1.5 million as you see becomes the cheapest, because here we're saving a little in the initial, but we're paying a little bit more. There's a little bit less replacement bulbs, but you would be replacing most of the bulbs, or you would be replacing them at least every decade. And hours of use cut down, so this is a little bit less than if you were to just keep what we had now. If we were to do daylighting, no matter what bulb you used, you're going to save energy in the long run, you're going to save money. But if we use LEDs, as you see, we're going to save almost $1 million more. Here's some of the sustainability factors and why it's better. The durability is better. Mercury is used in CFLs, about 5 milligrams per bulb. LEDs is none. LEDs could be used outdoors much better than CFLs could. And LEDs are being constantly improved. Technology is getting better, so that some of the numbers might start looking even better for LEDs. And now this was a interesting picture I took because there's lights on in the background, which I thought was ironic when the building was locked on the weekend, and this building was supposedly claimed to be considering retrofitted into the building with some smart motion sensors or whatever. No motion sensors. Some of them have them, but not in this building. But they put this on every building, but at least ASU is trying, and so that is what is optimistic, and hopefully some of these changes can happen. Thank you very much for listening.